Welcome to the deep dive, where we take these really complex, fundamental human questions, stack them against layers of source material, from philosophy to psychology, and distill the essential knowledge so you can walk away feeling thoroughly well-informed.
And today we are tackling, well, maybe the biggest one.
I think it might be the query that fuels almost everything we do, the ultimate human aspiration. What makes a life meaningful?
It truly is the universal question, isn't it? We start life focused entirely on survival, eating, sleeping, finding shelter.
The basics.
Exactly, the basics. And most modern people, we succeed brilliantly at survival. We establish careers, buy homes, find comfort. But the source material repeatedly highlights this profound paradox.
Which is,
You can master the art of survival, only to find yourself facing this deep, echoing, so what?
that feeling of an inner emptiness. I think everyone knows that feeling. You have all the elements of a successful, functioning life, but you feel hollow.
Right. It's like the engine is running, but the gears aren't engaging anything important.
The human condition, it seems, intrinsically demands more than just comfort or, entertainment. We don't just want to exist.
No.
We want our existence to resonate with some deeper purpose.
And that's our mission today. We are going to unpack meaning itself. Is it purely happiness? Is it found exclusively in service?
Or does it come predefined by some divine purpose? Or is it something we fundamentally, sometimes painfully, have to construct for ourselves?
We need to give you a coherent framework to think about this daily quest.
And we absolutely have to start by tackling that quiet, kind of insidious assumption that often derails people.
Oh, absolutely.
The idea that a meaningful life is automatically synonymous with a happy life. We have to challenge that assumption right out of the gate.
It is the most crucial distinction, because if we conflate the two, we set ourselves up for failure. When most people seek happiness, they are often defining it in the hedonic sense.
Hedonic. So pleasure, comfort.
Exactly. Pleasure, comfort, enjoyment, a high frequency of positive feelings, and a low frequency of negative ones.
Yeah.
It's about feeling good.
That tracks. Now, the sources provide a really stark cautionary tale here. Imagine a life that is perfectly optimized for immediate pleasure.
Right.
Think of someone whose entire existence is focused solely on comfort, distraction, passive consumption, and avoiding any serious struggle or pain.
Such a life, while it might be highly happy in the moment-to-moment sense, lots of positive stimuli, very little friction, can be profoundly shallow.
And ultimately, meaningless.
Yes, the sources argue that human consciousness sort of rebels against the purely pleasant life if it lacks depth or contribution. It's the existential equivalent of intellectual junk food.
And what's fascinating here is that the opposite is so often true, which is where the real insight from the psychological research comes in. I'm thinking of Viktor Frankl's work.
Oh, a cornerstone of this discussion. Frankl, who endured just unimaginable suffering in concentration camps, argued fiercely for the will to meaning.
And he contrasted it directly with the will to pleasure or the will to power.
Exactly. He observed that those who survived often did so because they had an external orientation, a commitment to a person, a task, or a value that was larger than their immediate survival.
Let's use an example. Consider a parent dedicated to caring for a child with a severe chronic illness.
Perfect example. That parent is experiencing immense, nonstop fatigue, worry, financial stress, and emotional drain.
By any standard definition of hedonic happiness, they are struggling tremendously. They are not happy in the sense of being carefree.
No, not at all. But they consistently report a deep, abiding sense of meaning because their life is fundamentally connected to the profound value of unconditional love and, primal responsibility.
The same truth applies to an activist risking their safety to expose injustice or a surgeon enduring grueling hours to save lives.
Yes. The meaning is found in the struggle, not in the absence of it, provided that struggle is directed toward a high value.
So the crucial takeaway here is that meaning is not about how good you feel on a day-to-day basis.
It's not.
It is about how deeply and congruently your life is connected to something you value, something that transcends your immediate self or your comfort.
And happiness might be a wonderful side effect of that meaningful life.
It often is.
Yeah.
But they are absolutely separate objectives.
Recognizing this distinction allows us to move out of the realm of, self-help cliches and into a structured philosophical framework.
Right.
When we ask, what makes life meaningful? We are almost never asking one simple question. We're usually wrestling with three different scopes of purpose at the same time.
I find this framework incredibly useful because it immediately clarifies the scope of the anxiety. You might have the answer to one question, but not the others, and that tension is what generates the feeling of aimlessness.
Precisely.
So what are these three big questions?
We can structure them from the grandest cosmic scale down to the most personal internal experience.
Okay.
First, we have cosmic meaning. This asks, does life as a whole have any intrinsic purpose within the universe?
The biggest possible question.
The biggest. Is there a reason why anything exists at all, or are we just a random, accidental fluctuation of matter and energy? This is the domain of metaphysics, grand creation narratives, theology.
You're asking if the universe has a central plot line and if humanity is a necessary character in it.
Exactly. That is the ultimate broad stroke. It's the highest conceptual level.
Okay, so from there.
Then we pull the scope in slightly, focusing on our existence as part of the human project, the historical continuum. This brings us to social historical meaning.
Right.
This asks, does my individual life matter in the grand human story? Will my actions make any difference to my community, to future generations, or to the overall sweep of history?
This is where we measure contribution, legacy, and impact.
Hmm.
This is the level that makes us plant trees we might never sit under.
Exactly. And finally, the most intimate level, the one that governs our daily psychological experience, personal meaning.
Okay, the internal litmus test.
Yes. It asks, does my life feel meaningful from the inside? Am I living in a way that aligns with my deepest personal values and aspirations, regardless of whether history remembers me or God approves?
And that mismatch problem you mentioned earlier is absolutely fascinating because it suggests structure isn't enough. You need that emotional and ethical buy-in.
Yes.
These three levels can be completely disconnected, and that disconnection is often the source of a true spiritual or psychological crisis.
Consider the dedicated secular humanist.
Hmm.
They may conclude definitively that cosmic meaning is zero, that the universe is vast, cold, and purposeless.
No grand plan.
No grand plan.
Hmm.
But their life can be incredibly rich in social and personal meaning because of their profound dedication to human causes, like volunteering, teaching, or activism.
So they've rejected the cosmic script, but have written a really compelling role for themselves within the human story.
Perfectly put. And conversely, and this is the more common and painful mismatch, you can have someone who intellectually accepts a grand, structured cosmic narrative.
And they believe they are part of a divine plan.
Yes, they do. But they still feel personally aimless, unfulfilled, or even, hypocritical in their daily choices.
They accept the highest, broadest answer, but they haven't figured out the personal or social application.
That's it. The cosmic anchor is there, but their daily actions lack congruence. And that profound gap between intellectual certainty and lived reality generates intense spiritual discomfort and meaninglessness, despite having the right answers on the grand scale.
It's the difference between knowing the map and actually taking the journey. So let's begin exploring the answers that attempt to bridge these dimensions, starting with the broadest anchor, the path that offers meaning as a gift, not a burden, meaning from above.
In this view, meaning is fundamentally given. It's not something you forge or find through introspection. It is revealed to you.
And this is the core argument driving a vast swath of human experience through religious, spiritual, and metaphysical traditions.
It is. The fundamental premise is that life is meaningful because it fits perfectly into a divine plan, a vast cosmic order, or a grand ultimate truth.
The universe is seen as intrinsically purposeful.
Precisely. And humans are assigned a role within that purpose. Whether that role is to love God, to achieve enlightenment, to practice unwavering obedience, to serve creation, or to fully reflect the divine nature, the meaning comes from the successful act of alignment with this pre-existing higher reality.
The implications of that successful alignment are immensely stabilizing and, well, democratic in a way.
How so?
Your life's value, your meaning, is fundamentally detached from the arbitrary and fleeting measures of worldly success, like fame, wealth, or professional status.
That's a powerful source nugget. It gives immense weight and value to what the sources call hidden acts.
Explain that.
Meaning can be found, for example, in the quiet, persistent practice of kindness when no one is looking, in private prayer, in the simple patience demonstrated during chronic pain, or in maintaining faithfulness during periods of doubt.
Because these acts are not aimed at impressing people. They are aimed at connecting the individual directly to that ultimate foundational reality. Their meaning is therefore anchored, eternal, and not relative to human judgment.
This leads directly to the core strengths of this cosmic view. It offers an incredible, stable foundation. Your purpose isn't destroyed by changing cultural trends or the ups and downs of personal failure or public opinion.
It remains fixed.
It does. It also provides what the sources call the ultimate antidote to arbitrary striving. If your striving is simply for your own ego or for temporary fame, its inevitable end is oblivion.
But if your striving is toward a cosmic goal, the scale changes entirely.
And critically, it offers profound hope in suffering. If pain, struggle, and grief are understood as part of a larger, purposeful story, maybe a test, a purification, a necessary path to wisdom, or a contribution to the ultimate good, then the suffering itself is imbued with purpose.
And that gives people immense internal strength to endure what would otherwise seem senseless.
Mhm. And finally, because the purpose is external and ultimate, this perspective often anchors morality. Purpose and behavioral standards are established beyond personal taste or convenience, providing a fixed external reference point for what constitutes goodness and meaningful action.
As powerful as that is, we do have to address the challenges, particularly for our learning audience. The first challenge is diversity.
Right.
Every major religion and tradition proposes a slightly different purpose, different pathways, and often conflicting ethical frameworks. For the sincere seeker, that can be overwhelming.
Which road leads to alignment? If there is one truth, why are there so many maps? It's a real problem.
It is.
And then, of course, for the skeptic, the secular learner, or the non-believer, this entire framework can be intellectually inaccessible. It requires a fundamental leap of faith, a metaphysical commitment that not everyone is willing or able to make.
Which can leave them feeling that the grandest answer is simply not available to them.
But the internal challenge is perhaps the most subtle and pervasive. We discussed the mismatch problem. You can have someone who has intellectual, unwavering belief in the cosmic plan, who follows all the rules, attends all the services, yet still struggles intensely to feel that purpose in their daily life.
The intellectual acceptance is easy.
The lived, felt meaning requires constant internal labor and attention. The external framework guarantees meaning exists, but it doesn't guarantee you'll actually access it. This often happens when the commitment becomes rote, or when dogma replaces genuine personal connection.
So for the millions who rely on it, meaning is found by being part of a living, sacred reality that is exponentially greater than the individual. But what if that path is closed off, either by conviction or by temperament?
Well, if meaning isn't given from above, where is the most logical next place to look?
Within.
Exactly.
Right.
We perform the complete philosophical pivot, moving from external decree to internal construction. If meaning is not given, perhaps it must be made from within. This shifts the focus from external alignment to internal congruence and authenticity.
This is the existential shift, the famous pronouncement that existence precedes essence. The core idea is that a meaningful life is one lived in radical agreement with your deepest chosen values and your authentic self, regardless of historical dictates or cosmic mandates.
That's the core idea. Meaning isn't found in an instruction manual. It arises from how genuinely and truthfully one responds to their own nature and the circumstances they find themselves in.
And the source material highlights three essential, sometimes frightening, components that are necessary for this kind of meaning construction.
The first being self-knowledge. This is the prerequisite. It means the brutal, honest work of understanding what truly motivates you.
Stripping away the pervasive layers of social pressure, familial expectations, and cultural trends that constantly tell you what you should want or should value.
It's separating the signal from the noise in your own head.
Okay, so once you have that self-knowledge.
The second is integrity. Knowing your values is one thing, living them is another. Integrity means acting in ways that directly match those genuine values, not just professing them in comfortable company.
And the source of internal meaninglessness is often that profound gap that develops between what you say you stand for and what your daily actions demonstrate.
Authenticity closes that gap.
And that leads to the third and perhaps most difficult component, courage.
Yes. Authenticity is inherently risky. It means making choices that may be unpopular, deeply misunderstood, costly, or even dangerous, but which feel profoundly true to who you are called to be or who you are actively choosing to become.
It is the courage to stand alone in your conviction.
This is deeply connected to existentialist thought, the burden of freedom. As Camus famously explored, even if we accept the universe as silent and without inherent pre-written meaning, we are still free.
And in that terrifying freedom, we create our meaning by choosing our projects, our loves, our values.
We become, in a very real sense, responsible for carving out our own purpose.
The appeal of this path is undeniable. It functions perfectly without any requirement for metaphysical belief.
Right.
It places all the emphasis on individual freedom, autonomy, and responsibility, making you the sole author of your life's purpose. And it deeply respects the uniqueness of the individual. Your meaning, defined by your fingerprint, will look like no one else's.
But we absolutely must introduce some critical friction here because this path has serious risks. I worry about the modern tendency to fetishize authenticity.
How so?
How do you prevent this commitment to internal values from sliding into pure self-centeredness or narcissism?
That's a crucial point, and it's one that the philosophical sources themselves grapple with. If my internal values are confused, shallow, or even actively harmful to others, say, I discover my authentic self wants power and control, does the resulting life still qualify as meaningful just because it's authentic?
Authenticity without external reference, without a moral commitment to justice, community, or the well-being of others, is indeed risky. It can become a self-referential loop.
We've all seen examples where people become so focused on being true to themselves that they disconnect entirely from their responsibilities to the world around them.
But isn't radical self-knowledge often necessary before you can meaningfully help others? Isn't the deep introspection required for authenticity a prerequisite for understanding where you can best contribute?
You have to know what you truly have to give.
It is a delicate balance. The most profound existentialists recognize that freedom always comes with responsibility to others. We don't choose only for ourselves. Our choices set an example for all of humanity, as Sartre argued.
So while you choose your values, the meaningful choice often involves choosing a value that requires connection and commitment to the external world.
That distinction is key. The fundamental takeaway remains. A life lived in constant pretense, confidently wearing a mask or playing a role for external approval, regardless of how successful or wealthy that role makes you,
Is a life that is fundamentally exhausting.
and cannot be truly meaningful. The exhaustion of inauthenticity is a killer of purpose.
So we have meaning from above the given and meaning from within the created. Now we move to perhaps the most commonly cited and arguably most psychologically robust source of meaning.
That which is found between us.
This moves us entirely into the realm of external connection and impact. The sources strongly suggest that the heart of meaning for the vast majority of people lies in shared experience.
Loving, being loved, taking responsibility for something beyond your own skin, and caring for others.
Let's focus first on relationship and love. This is the path of family, friendships, community, and even solidarity with strangers. The data here is overwhelming.
It really is.
I mean, we can cite the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest studies of human life ever conducted. The core conclusion, spanning generations of research, was incredibly simple.
And what was it?
Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Not wealth, not status, but strong, warm bonds.
The contrast is powerful and universally understood. A life crammed full of possessions, status, and self-optimization, but empty of real deep connection, is consistently reported to feel meaningless at its core.
It's the solitary mountain of success.
Whereas a life anchored by deep reciprocal connection and love, even one lived with great hardship, lack of comfort, or relative poverty, can feel enduringly rich, full, and meaningful.
The richness is in the depth of the bonds, not the breadth of the bank account.
But we must be realistic. Meaning found through connection is inherently vulnerable.
Right.
Relationships are fragile. They are subject to loss, grief, betrayal, and the ultimate pain of separation through death.
That's the pain of connection. It's an inevitable risk. If your meaning is tied to external people, you will face external loss.
Which is why the meaning found here must be robust enough to survive these realities. Love, in this context, is often redefined not as a pleasant, easy comfort, but as an ongoing act of vulnerability, courage, and commitment, especially when it becomes difficult.
You choose to love even knowing the potential for pain.
Yes. And when people reflect on their lives at the very end, what consistently rises to the surface is the ultimate scorecard for this path.
They rarely reference their professional title or the size of their portfolio.
No, they talk about who they loved and how they loved them.
Moving from that intimate personal connection to broader social impact, we arrive at the path of contribution, work, and impact.
This is the definition that a life is meaningful, when it contributes something of lasting perceived value beyond the sphere of the self.
The beauty of this path is its variety. The contribution doesn't have to be massive. It could be raising children with stability and compassion,
Creating profound art or knowledge.
dedicating time to local civic improvement or working tirelessly for healing or justice.
The central psychological component is the feeling of efficacy, the sense that your existence had a purpose beyond your own needs.
Because you lived, someone was helped, some problem was eased, or something valuable was created or maintained.
This feeling fundamentally moves us beyond self-absorption and its accompanying emptiness.
And what's vital to stress, especially in a culture that's so obsessed with visibility, is that contribution absolutely does not require fame or a big, publicly acknowledged achievement.
We have to focus on the dignity of unseen work. Think of the subtle but profound social meaning of a janitor who views their work not just as cleaning floors.
But as maintaining a dignified, safe, and hygienic environment for doctors to heal or for children to learn.
Exactly. Or the caregiver who supports elders with compassion, dignity, and tireless patience, whose work is fundamentally invisible to the public eye.
Or a teacher who fundamentally changes the trajectory of 30 students every year for 20 years. No headlines, no statues, but they have profoundly altered hundreds of lives.
These are lives saturated in social meaning because they link their personal dedication to the wider human story. This pathway is also incredibly resilient.
How so?
It gives people a necessary reason to endure hardship because they are working for something necessary and worthwhile. Their identity is tied up in their role, not just their transient feelings.
But the shadow of this path is obvious, the challenge of failure. What if you dedicate your life to a cause and it fails? What if you never see the results of your contribution? Does a life entirely dedicated to one aging relative, which leaves no public legacy, lack meaning?
That's a serious counterpoint.
Yeah.
But the powerful response derived from the sources is that contribution is not measured in headlines or statistical outcomes. The most meaningful work is often local, quiet, and profoundly real in the lives of those immediately touched.
So the meaning resides in the integrity and devotion of the effort, not the scale of the measurable public result.
The sacrifice itself is often the meaning.
We've established the sources of meaning, above, within, and between us. But there's a powerful parallel perspective that sees meaning not as a fixed destination or a role, but as a continuous developmental process.
Meaning through growth.
Right.
This framing suggests that meaning is less about what your purpose is and more about the quality and intentionality of the path itself, a continuous journey of discovery, transformation, and self-cultivation.
So what are the primary mechanisms of this growth?
Well, it encompasses everything from the intellectual learning new, difficult skills, exploring complex ideas, engaging deeply with art and literature, to the emotional and spiritual.
So it also involves grappling with inevitable life challenges that necessarily lead to maturity, resilience, and developing deeper wisdom and depth of character.
It does. If you adopt this perspective, the purpose of life isn't just found in the end result, the job done, the child raised, but in the transformation that occurs within the person doing the work.
The questions become, am I becoming more aware, more compassionate, more capable? Am I moving from a state of fear or ignorance toward courage and insight?
This resonates strongly with ancient philosophical schools like Stoicism, which emphasize that the work of life is to create the self to achieve eudaimonia, or human flourishing, through disciplined self-cultivation.
And it applies equally to spiritual paths focused on awakening or enlightenment.
The immediate benefit of this view is that meaning can be extracted even from hardship and difficulty. If the struggle is understood as a necessary part of a larger process of growth, a refiner's fire that develops resilience, then the struggle itself becomes purposeful, not just arbitrary suffering.
It encourages a stance of lifelong curiosity and resilience.
But there's a critical challenge, what we call the directional problem. Growth for what purpose?
Right. Growth purely as an end in itself can feel vague, even dangerous.
It can. If the sole focus is accumulating power, knowledge, or skill, without any external moral orientation, without that compass pointing toward love, justice, wisdom, or truth, you might grow tremendously in capability, but not in goodness.
You become a powerful, but possibly destructive agent.
Therefore, meaning through growth requires an orientation. The goal must not just be change, but change in a direction that serves higher, more compassionate values. Otherwise, you're just getting better at being, well, whatever you are.
We have spent considerable time mapping out how to find or create purpose. But a deep dive demands that we also acknowledge the dark shadow that often accompanies this search.
The pessimistic whisper of nihilism.
Exactly. This voice asks the ultimate skeptical question, one that must be confronted seriously.
Ultimately, nothing matters. The universe is indifferent. Everyone dies. All is forgotten. Our achievements are just temporary patterns in an uncaring void.
It is a profound, serious argument, and we have to admit the validity of its premises, which is what makes it so terrifying.
It is. On a cosmic timescale, individual lives, even civilizations, are infinitesimally tiny. And observation suggests the universe is not inherently designed to guarantee personal justice, ultimate fairness, or the fulfillment of human wishes.
So the nihilist asks, if everything, without exception, ends in oblivion, is meaning merely a comforting self-generated illusion we use to cope with the terror of existence?
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the most profound and powerful counterargument often comes from the very philosophers who stare deepest into the abyss of meaninglessness.
The existentialists, like Camus.
Camus's answer, which is often summarized through the myth of Sisyphus, is a powerful model for chosen defiance. He essentially says, yes, the universe may be indifferent, but that does not stop you, the conscious observer, from caring intensely.
The indifference of the stars does not negate the burning reality of human joy, suffering, or love right here, right now.
Meaning is not something the cosmos hands down to you. It's something you seize and live out through acts of rebellion against that indifference.
You choose love over apathy. You choose justice over chaos. You commit to projects and relationships despite knowing they are temporary.
The fact that everything is impermanent, that you will die, and your achievements will eventually be forgotten, does not erase the fact that your choices matter to real, immediate beings.
You are free to choose the meaning in the moment, and that freedom is the source of all value.
It is the ultimate act of defiant creation.
So, after exploring all these high-level philosophical paths, the given, the chosen, and the connected, what do we find when we synthesize how meaning actually manifests in the lived experience of ordinary people?
What are the practical building blocks?
Yes.
When we distill the most consistent practical themes across the psychological sources, from developmental research to life reflection studies, 5 essential overlapping elements consistently rise to the surface.
These are the 5 C's of meaning.
They are.
Let's detail these C's thoroughly, because this is where the actionable structure for you, the listener, comes into play. These are the daily practices that build purpose.
Okay. Number 1, connection. We start here because it is primal. This covers deep relationships, love, belonging, and community. The basic human need is to be seen, loved, and interdependent.
And if you lack connection, the sources confirm all other sources of meaning tend to feel detached, cold, or thin.
It's the soil in which meaning grows.
Okay, number 2.
Contribution. This is the act of helping others, creating value, or leaving something better than you found it. It's that feeling of efficacy we discussed.
The profound psychological relief of knowing your existence was not purely self-serving. It's the daily work, big or small, that moves a value into reality.
Number 3, coherence. This one is subtle but critical. Coherence is the psychological need to feel that your life is a story that makes some kind of sense.
It requires narrative unity.
Yes, it is what allows us to integrate suffering, seeing a setback not as an arbitrary disaster, but as a necessary, though painful, chapter in our development.
So coherence is the difference between feeling like you are living a random sequence of events versus feeling like you are participating in a story that has a trajectory, even if you don't know the ending.
Exactly. It provides directionality and historical context for your personal life. It allows you to transform why me into what now.
Number 4.
Commitment. This is dedication to something beyond the self, a cause, a deeply held faith, a craft, a family, or an ideal. Commitment is the intentional focusing of energy.
It prevents the scattering of effort and attention that often leads to internal distraction and emptiness.
It means choosing to be for something and sticking with it.
And the last C?
Congruence.
Yeah.
This brings us back to authenticity, but in a practical context. It means living in a way that fits your true values and your conscience. Your external actions must match your internal moral or ethical framework.
When congruence is high, you feel integrated and whole. When it is low, you feel like a fraud, which is profoundly meaningless.
And what's interesting is how frequently these elements intertwine in a meaningful life. You might commit to a challenging craft,
Commitment.
which forces you to grow in skill,
Growth.
allowing you to create something beautiful for others,
Contribution.
and providing you with a narrative of dedication.
Coherence. They all weave together.
It's never just one thing.
Yeah.
And to reinforce this practical synthesis, we must absolutely note what the sources consistently show meaning is not found in.
The avoidance list.
Yes, history, psychology, and personal reflection consistently demonstrate that deep, abiding, sustainable meaning is rarely, if ever, derived from pure, unbridled selfish pleasure,
Or from endless distraction designed explicitly to avoid real introspection or discomfort.
or from the pure accumulation of status or material wealth without any deeper connection to value or others. These are necessary but insufficient conditions for purpose.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener, who is on this continuous journey? Let's gently synthesize everything we've covered by revisiting the three major philosophical camps for finding meaning.
First, we explored the idea that meaning is given from above by a divine power or a cosmic order, which requires alignment and obedience to a received truth.
This provides stability and hope in suffering.
Second, we looked at how meaning is made from within by conscious choice, existential commitment, and the hard, continuous work of self-knowledge and congruence.
This provides freedom and ownership.
Third, and most practically, meaning is found between us in deep, intentional relationships, radical service, and shared projects that serve a value higher than the immediate self.
This provides warmth and efficacy.
And practically, we can view a life rich in meaning as a complex, continuous weave, a synthesis of four key ingredients that you must continuously nurture through those 5 C's.
So, what are those 4 ingredients?
Those ingredients are love, the continuous giving and receiving of care and connection; work contribution, doing something that matters beyond your immediate self, whether paid or unpaid; growth, becoming wiser, more compassionate, more capable, and more fully yourself; and finally, wonder transcendence.
That's a new one.
It is, but it's crucial. That feeling of being connected to something larger, be it nature, great art, ultimate truth, or the vast continuity of humanity.
The beautiful paradox here and the ultimate takeaway is that the question, what makes life meaningful, is not answered once and for all in a textbook or a philosophical treaty.
No, it is lived again and again through your daily choices, your active relationships, and your continuous commitments.
And we must emphasize the good news. Meaning is not reserved for the famous, the highly educated, or the perfect. It is universally accessible.
It can be found in ordinary days, in small acts of love, in honest, diligent work that serves a purpose, and in the faithful attention paid to what you genuinely care about.
A truly meaningful life, by this definition, is not a life without pain, doubt, or confusion. But it is a life where, despite the inevitable suffering, the internal narrative remains strong.
And you can still ultimately stand up and say, I know why I got up this morning. I know what I'm trying to give, what I'm striving to learn, and who I am trying to become.
And that returns us to the importance of congruence and continuous self-examination.
It does. If meaning requires integrity, that your life story makes internal and external sense, then this raises an important question for you to mull over after this dive, which is it possible to maintain true meaning without periodically examining and challenging the core values that currently drive your life, ensuring they haven't grown stale, become shallow, or simply been borrowed from someone else's definition of success?
That's a powerful thought to end on.
That is the continuous daily work of meaning creation.